Composed, a novella by J.E. Novotny. Part 9. Camilla held the goodbye letter in her hand the next day, standing alone in the hunting cottage. Her hands trembled as she rolled the letter up and tucked it into her bag. Then she sank into a chair and sobbed. She mentally replayed the events of that morning. Nathan arriving at her apartment unannounced and unexpected with a bouquet of red roses in his hand and vows of eternal love on his lips. Nathan attempting to kiss her and Camilla slapping his face. Oh Lord, she'd slapped him and stormed out. Her only thought had been to find Dmitri, her composer. To find him, to hold him, to discuss with him the future he had hinted at the night before. To run away if possible. But he had already run away. Without her. Camilla gasped as she heard the door creak open. For a moment, she thought that Dmitri was standing in front of her. But no. A second glance as she wiped the last few tears from her eyes showed that it was the man from the Empress's tea. His long brown hair and most of his facial features were very similar to Dmitri, but there was something not quite the same. There was a hardness in the lines of his face that the composer lacked, and he had wrinkles forming around his eyes that the composer wouldn't have for several years yet. "I thought I might find you here, Lady Camilla," he said. "Who are you?" Camilla asked. Her voice cracked, the last word dying almost to nothing. The man looked amused by her question, or the situation, or both, but he answered nonetheless. "I am Dmitri's brother, Lord Matthias," he said. Camilla gasped again, and it turned into a hiccup. She knew the captain of the Emperor's Guard by name, and now she also knew him by appearance. She did not know quite what to say, but Lord Matthias spoke anyway. "I will not ask if my brother left any letter. I will assume that he did not violate the Emperor's orders by doing so. I hope to find you here, so that I might explain, as best I can, what has happened. It is less awkward this way than my coming to the theatre, I think." Camilla nodded. Matthias took a couple of steps to reach the fire pit, where he knelt down and began arranging kindling. Spring had arrived, but a nip remained in the air of the dark, one-windowed cottage. "My brother, you may already know, is not in the Emperor's good graces," Matthias said as he worked on the fire. "I do not wish to pain you, but I feel you should understand the facts of the situation." "Lady Marta has informed me of how he came to be out of the Emperor's grace," Camilla said. Her voice was faint. "I'm glad. Then I won't go into it further. All that matters is that the Emperor is very interested in you and your well-being, my lady." Matthias stood and brushed his hands on his breeches. "The Emperor does not want a repeat performance of what happened with Lady Anya." The words, "sent to a convent," floated through Camilla's mind, and she involuntarily shuddered. No, she would not want a repeat of the results of that performance either. "I do not know what promises my brother may have made to you, or what feelings you might have held for each other," Matthias said. His back was to Camilla now, and she could barely hear him. "But I hope that you understand it is better if you forget that you ever knew him." "I understand." Camilla's response was mechanical, immediate. She was so well conditioned to respond amicably to the demands of the nobility, no matter how ludicrous, no matter how heartbreaking. Matthias turned back to face her, but the firelight cast his face into shadow. She saw him nod, and he headed for the door. "You may remain here as long as you wish," he said. Then, upon reflection, he added, "And you may continue to use this cottage to practice, if you wish. My brother explained to me that this is what you used the cottage for previously. I know that it can be useful to have a place away from everyone else, to think or to simply be. So please, use it as you wish." "Thank you, Captain. It is most kind of you." "Good. Then I will see that supplies for the fire pit are kept stocked and ready for your use." With that, he left her alone. The cottage was slightly warmer with the fire, yet Camilla felt cold all over. The letter had left out much. that the Emperor had demanded her composer's departure for one. Camilla pulled out the goodbye letter and reread it in light of this new information. For a few moments, hope sparked in her heart. It was smothered just as quickly by the realization that it did not matter why Dmitri had fled. The result was the same. Camilla was to continue living and working in the capital city, now without her composer to provide the music that enthralled the court. And she had slapped Nathan for saying he loved her. No, she had slapped Nathan for trying to kiss her. She felt the difference was important. Camilla began pacing as she thought over her options. They were few, and many of them were precarious or distasteful. She read the letter one more time by the dying light of the last flickering log. Then she ripped it to pieces and fed the bits to the tiny flames. They flared briefly, and far more quickly than she really wanted them to go. The pieces were gone. Camilla took a last look around the hunting cottage. Despite Lord Matthias's kind offer and her initial acceptance, she would not return here. She knew that she could not. Turning her back on the place for good, Camilla strode through the muddy woods with her chin up and her eyes dry.